Can you imagine turning your kitchen waste into a thriving business? I'm excited because here in Orlando, someone has. Welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Lifestyle, where we explore the intersection of Orlando real estate and your best life. I'm Phil Kruse, here to help you make the most out of your journey in the City Beautiful. Today, I'll be interviewing Charlie Pioli, who is the founder of O-Town Compost. Charlie comes from a solid waste and recycling background and decided to found O-Town Compost in 2019. Charlie believes there is no such thing as waste. And O-Town Compost's stated mission is to extend the life of Orange County's landfill by being a key component of their waste management structure. Charlie, welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Lifestyle, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Great, and I'm so happy to have you too. Look, O-Town Compost, for the listener out there, offers so much. You hear the word compost, a lot of people may not even know what that is or have certain predispositions to it. Charlie's company offers residential services to homeowners, but he also offers services for office, for food service industries like restaurants and catering companies, whole community programs like HOAs and other communities, and even special events like weddings. So it goes way deeper than you might think. And if you, at the end of this, or even during, if you are interested to find out more about Charlie's company, O-Town Compost, make sure you go to his website, O-Town, or you can find him on social media. No dashes on this. It's just at O-Town Compost. He's on IG and Facebook for sure, LinkedIn as well. And some of the topics that we're going to be discussing today are you at home starting your own compost heap, bringing O-Town Compost. How are you going to bring O-Town Compost to your house or your office or your special event? The City of Orlando's waste management goals, because that is a big deal here in Orlando, and even countertop composters. I know you guys out there have seen that on YouTube or Instagram. Now, before I pull Charlie in, before we go any further, I have a few shameless plugs for myself. I am a real estate agent, and one of my main lead sources are listeners and viewers like you. So when it is your time to make a real estate decision, think of me. I'm Phil Kruse. That's Kruse with a K, Kruse. A portion of all my commissions go to charity, either a charity of your choosing or the New Image Youth Center, where I volunteer every week during the school year. We're just getting started. I volunteer there over the summer. It's a great, great charity that helps the underprivileged youth of Paramore, right there west of downtown Orlando. Jump on your podcast platform or YouTube, click the bell, like and subscribe. I release new episodes like this one every single Monday with all kinds of great Orlando-based content. It's not just real estate. Obviously, I'm interviewing Charlie, who's the owner of a compost company. So I interview all kinds of business owners, update you on what's going on in Orlando, and of course, provide real estate tips. Find me on Instagram and Facebook. Again, just search Phil Kruse, Kruse, throw real estate, throw Orlando. You're going to find me everywhere. All right, enough of that. Thank you for your patience, Charlie.
Oh, no worries.
Dude, Charlie, I already explained to you that I did a composting project back in 6th grade, organic gardening. So I have an intimate understanding of what compost is. But my guess is many listeners out there don't fully understand what is compost. So I want to know, what is compost? And while we're at it, what's the weirdest thing you've ever found in it?
Yeah, so compost is not to be confused with food waste. A lot of times people refer to their food waste, their raw food waste, as compost. But composting is a biological process, a bacterial process of degradation or breaking down organic material naturally. And it's typically a thermophilic process with oxygen. So composting is aerobic instead of anaerobic.
Okay.
And you kind of take two components, your nitrogen component and your carbon component. Food waste is the nitrogen component, and we mix our food waste with wood chips at the compost sites. And that's what, over the course of a couple months and turning to give it more oxygen, that's what creates the finished soil amendment or the black gold.
Nice.
And then The weirdest thing we've ever found, man, I mean, one time one of our drivers who had backyard chickens, he one of his backyard chickens passed away. So we just told him like, put it in the compost, we'll
Oh
pick it
my.
up and take it out to the compost site. And if you think about an animal's life or all the roadkill in Central Florida, like the proper way to dispose of that is not bring it to the landfill like what is the standard practice. It's to compost it and reuse the nutrients. So we're in the business of nutrient recycling.
Nice. And I always thought, and maybe somebody out there who already has a relative understanding of compost, I was always taught that protein waste, animals, things like that, should not go in your compost heap or in your bucket, which we'll get into soon for homeowners and business owners. You're telling me that's not the case?
No, because the meat and dairy and bones, that type of stuff doesn't belong in your backyard pile, especially if you
Ah,
live in the urban area. But for us, our compost sites are out in more rural areas, and the piles are huge. They sustain the high heats, which
hmm.
kills all the pathogens, weed seeds, and fly larvae. So meat and dairy is no problem. It doesn't stand a chance in our hot piles. So
Cool. Well, that's good to know. So if you got a compost heap at home, still stop putting protein in it. So,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
um, so Charlie, I'm going to shift gears, man. It's not every day you meet somebody who takes the plunge to leave their background with a traditional job, for my best guess, in the solid waste and recycling industry, and decides to start their own composting company. So, how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I graduated college from Northeastern University in Boston, and the first job I found out of college was as a solid waste consultant that brought me to Orlando, Florida. I worked that job a couple of years, and that really exposed me to landfills,
Mhm.
basically how our country manages its solid waste, and it was quite eye-opening. I noticed that organic waste is the lion's share of what's going to our landfill, and has the highest potential of a material that we can recycle and recover, because every building in Orlando has a recycle bin, but you don't see compost bins hardly anywhere.
Good point.
And then, I think the day that I officially decided to shift gears into the entrepreneurship was when I was out in Syracuse, New York, doing a project for the consulting agency I work for, and my boss gave me a call saying they weren't sure if they could meet payroll that week, and I was like, you know what, this is the universe telling me that I'm better off gambling on something like starting my own business, because I had already been aware of this subscription compost business model. I used to be a subscriber when I lived in Boston, and no one was doing it in Orlando. So I started off by just picking up buckets in my Toyota Camry and composting in my yard with a pitchfork. And then it's since grown from there. So,
Yeah, I'll say. Speaking of which, the buckets and the growth of your company, you now service, single family homes, average citizens, amongst other businesses and so forth. But I want to focus on the homeowner listening out there. How does the average homeowner get started with your company if they want to start composting through O-Town Compost?
yeah, so I'll start by saying our model, our composting subscription model, is really the convenient way to compost. We take out all the odors, turning. We give you a 5 gallon bucket with a compostable liner and an airtight lid. You can put in your meat, dairy, paper towels, tea bags, stuff that you normally couldn't put in your backyard pile. And then the night before your pickup day, you get a text message reminder to put out your bucket. Our driver comes to your front door, swaps it out for a clean, fresh bucket, because we're washing hundreds of buckets at our warehouse every week. And then we bring it to our farm partners or compost sites, and they process it into the finished compost, the black gold. And then our subscribers can receive 2 free buckets of black gold per year. So it's not like a huge amount of compost, but it's enough to fertilize your favorite trees or pot plants. So it tells that story of, hey, this organic waste is not trash. It's actually a valuable resource that can, be used.
That's great. And then same question about getting started. Like, how does that model differ for someone who's listening, who's a business owner or office manager that, has a cafeteria in their building or something? How's it changed for them?
Yeah, so we offer for any offices with break rooms or a coffee machine, there's going to be food waste inevitably. We offer a complimentary lunch and learn or a
Mm.
1 hour training session for the staff to give them a presentation. Everyone's eating their lunch, and we go over like our business model where we bring their food waste and how we turn it into black gold. Um, so we set the offices up with a stainless steel step can, which is a professional aesthetic. It also, no one wants to be touching the lid, so it's a step can. It works well that way. And the same thing with our residential service. Our driver comes into the office during regular business hours, swaps out the step can insert, and we take it back and compost it. On the commercial side, we offer, the 48-gallon toter style of service. And our customers like restaurants, cafes, universities, wherever there's a cafeteria, there's going to be food waste. They fill those up. Our driver empties them, rinses them out because we have a pressure washer on our truck, and then we put in a new compostable liner, making the service as clean and odor free as we can.
I think that's awesome. And I think in today's culture and society, people are much more aware of being environmentally friendly. And I think it makes a lot of sense for institutions and restaurants that are catering to our generation to do this. And then, they could put that in their marketing structure and infrastructure, and let people know that this is what they're doing, and help spread the word. And before I forget to mention it, Charlie, at the end of the podcast, let's talk about this. I have a friend who's in the recycling space and works with stadiums all over the country to recycle their plastic. So maybe I can hook you up with some sort of opportunity there.
Yeah, I would love to get in touch. And we do compost at the soccer stadium, Intern Co. or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a huge opportunity for waste diversion.
Great. Awesome. And look at you. You're already doing it. That's so good, man. Congratulations. And again, if you want to get in contact with Charlie, o-towncompost.com, or on social media, O-Town Compost, no dashes. Now, before we get into other topics like the countertop composters or the City of Orlando's zero waste goals, hook me up and subscribe to my podcast. If you're listening, you're going to find so much value in it. I'm on YouTube as well. Go on Spotify, look in your episode description. You're going to find Charlie's contact information. You're going to find my cell phone number. I am a real estate agent, so just shoot me a text. Don't forget that a portion of all my commissions goes to charity. I'm a listing specialist. Okay, I'll help your home sell fast and at the highest price through a special technique called the auction technique. Usually we get it under contract within the first weekend, higher than the listing price. And there's a whole strategy around that. And of course, find me on all social media platforms at Phil Kruse. Again, Kruse with a K, Kruse. All right, Charlie. So we kind of touched on this a little bit, but a lot of people don't think about certain special events that they attend and how big they can be and how much food waste they can create. And weddings are at the top of the list when I think of that, bar mitzvahs, things like that, but weddings being the number one most common. How much food waste does the average wedding create?
Yeah, I mean, the average American wedding creates about 400 pounds of trash just from the one event. And Orlando is actually the largest wedding market in the United States.
Look at that.
Second is New York. But I was shocked when I heard this. So, it's probably due to the Disney effect or the good
Sure.
weather. But Yeah, we routinely do compost at weddings, and we're preferred vendors at Orlando Science Center. But really, it started when I was holding a silver tray as a server, working for a catering company in Boston. And I would see the egregious amount of food waste that would go out in the black trash bags at the end of the night. Oftentimes, there would be like homeless people that we would carry these bags past, and it was all this like gourmet food.
Yeah.
So it's an easy, simple solution where we set up our compost bins in the back of house. We work with the servers. We are partners with Orlando's three biggest caterers, Four Rivers, Arthur's, and Puffin Stuff.
Wow.
And not only do we compost at their central kitchens where this food is prepared, but they're now accustomed to working with us at their events. And their servers just bust back the food waste. Our bins are there to capture it. And then we provide a waste ambassador or staff member to help busing, make sure that the source separation is done properly, and then answer any guest questions so they know that the food waste is going to a good place.
Wow. I'm super impressed. I didn't realize how robust of a service you provide for those folks to make it literally as easy as possible.
Mhm.
And if the staff that's waiting the tables and the bussers and so on aren't on board or don't understand, everyone's wasting their time. So I think it's genius that you have a waste ambassador. That's an awesome
Yeah.
branding of that person's job title. It sounds like you have a great company culture. You want to expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we now have a staff of about 10 or 11. In the fall, we're expanding to Gainesville, mostly because of their favorable public policy mandating food waste diversion at the
Mm,
commercial and multifamily level. We just hired a general manager there, but our company culture is based on, you know, like we hire good people. We've not always been successful in hiring good people, but they usually don't last if
right.
they aren't a good fit. And then it just starts with kind of like relaxed, trusting that our staff is like they're adults. I trust them that they're going to get stuff done. And if we can maintain that professional relationship, I don't need to be breathing down anyone's back or micromanaging. And that's another reason I work from home 2 days out of the week, because one of my fears is micromanaging my team. So I think that distance is pretty healthy.
Oh, it's empowering, right? You keep an arm's length from your employees
Hmm.
and with a mindset and mindfulness attitude of, yeah, empower them to solve their own problems, to be creative, and ultimately that leads to more job fulfillment. I love it. I think that's great, Charlie. I do have another question for you. I've certainly seen this stuff on social media, and I know you recently posted about it, and you got me thinking, what are countertop composters and where do they fit in all this?
Yeah, so countertop composters, you might see them like brands like the Lomi or the Mill. They're not cheap. They're a
Yeah.
couple or a few $100s, but what they do is they process your raw food scraps into not compost, but like fertilizer or organic matter. Basically, they're not composters because they dehydrate the food waste. Food waste is like 80% water. So by removing that portion, you're getting kind of like this brown dehydrated food waste, and it might have some good microbial life in it, bacteria, but you don't want to, as a article that was recently published that I shared on my LinkedIn page, you don't want to put it next to your prize roses necessarily. It's not going to be great soil amendment. It's more of a way to conveniently turn your food waste into something that, and you're diverting it from the landfill. So I can't be criticizing it too much. It's better than throwing your food waste in the trash.
Well, that's great. I appreciate you explaining that. And something else you've already touched on, and we've touched on, is, and I always like to talk about this kind of stuff with some of the guests I've had on, like Caleb Harrell, the CEO of Hawkers, and Thomas Ward of Pig Floyd's. Everybody, that myself included. I mean, if you're taking the plunge and starting your own business, you are absolutely an entrepreneur. You are a clear and shining example of that, who saw an opportunity and went with it. So a lot of people that listen to my podcast are either already entrepreneurs or certainly considering working for themselves. What kind of tips do you have, or what's maybe the number one tip you could give if you were mentoring a person who wants to take the plunge and start their own business?
I think what really helped me was starting in the industry and working, a W-2 job, kind of paying attention and understanding how the industry works. But one thing I've been doing even to today is subscribing to industry newspapers and magazines. Just kind of like that gives me a big picture perspective on how the industry is going. And it's led to me making decisions and being able to talk the talk when I'm ultimately talking with a municipality. Because at the end of the day, Phil, like we love our independent subscription model, but compost carts and compost needs to be citywide.
Yeah.
Every household, multifamily unit, business needs to be composting. So we're working towards municipal contracts. And that's why I continuously read. And I think just for an entrepreneur who's aspiring to go into a space, just think it through and don't burn yourself out, because every month, I used to have a podcast myself where I talked to my audience of community composters, a lot of aspiring community composters. And out of 10 composters who would contact me, maybe one of them actually made it and started doing their thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like they get burnt out, that they realize they need workers' comp insurance, then they quit right there, or they just feel like they just, something in their life detracts them from moving forward. So just staying focused and having kind of tunnel vision. And my girlfriend will tell you I am kind of a one-track minded. So
Good. Yeah. Don't dilute your focus. What I'm hearing, that's one. Number two is obviously have some sort of background in the industry would be ideal. Don't just rip the Band-Aid off and go to something that you don't fully understand and expect to be able to start your own business right out of the gate without having some experience. And finally, join industry, either affiliations, clubs, services, and subscribe to content either online or physically. I think that's great advice, some of which I could take myself. And this is going to be my last question. The city of Orlando, as you know, Charlie, the city of Orlando wants to be a zero waste community by 2040. How, and you touched on it saying you want to get municipal contracts, but I want to know, what's your vision? How does O-Town Compost fit into the city of Orlando's vision of zero waste?
Yeah. And in our service area, we serve Osceola, Seminole, and Orange County. There's probably a couple dozen municipalities in our service area, but City of Orlando is our home. That's where I live. That's where our warehouse is located. After this call, I'm going to hand deliver letters to Mayor Dyer and all the city commissioners down at City Hall. And it outlines kind of my plan of how we can achieve zero waste. And City of Orlando is pretty far from it. I've heard people laud City of Orlando as the most sustainable city in the Southeast, maybe in energy and water sustainability, but solid waste, we're not farther than, anywhere. So what I encourage City of Orlando's city council to do is look at what other cities are doing. Like if anyone has traveled, you may have been to Gainesville, Austin, Texas, Boston, New York, San Francisco, my hometown, Portland, Oregon. They've been able to put in a structure that composting is seen as a utility alongside trash and recycling. It's not a feel-good service. It's just something we got to do. And then you start worrying about public outreach and education, which people receive mailers at their homes, social media, and that's how you shift the culture away from a throwaway society like we currently have in Orlando to a zero waste culture. And it just takes time. One of the most exciting clients we have at O-Town is we compost at 21 Orange County public schools.
Nice.
And a lot of those schools are elementary school kids.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine when those schools go from elementary to middle to high school, composting in the cafeteria along the way, they're going to grow up to know how to compost, what a compost bin is. Yep. And they're going to grow up to be like responsible adults. So it's exciting.
It is exciting. And it makes me think about my own personal journey where I used your service and with my background of composting, decided to start my own compost bin and heap. I have 3 little kids, 8, 6, and 4. They're heavily involved. They always clear their plates as appropriate into the compost bin. They help me stir it and turn it. And we have a personal home garden. And so to any of the listeners out there, if you go, have kids that attend the school, or you have an office manager or a boss, like these are opportunities for you to take the information that Charlie's sharing with us today and go out there and create change in your community. It could be as simple as talking to the principal or administrator at your school, turning them on to what Charlie's doing, explaining to them the value it's going to have to educate the kids and get them involved. And I could just picture the kids in line dumping their compost and you guys coming in every now and again and doing a little dog and pony show for the kids and showing them what the compost looks like, letting them get their hands dirty.
All these schools have community gardens too, so we give back the finished compost, telling that story. Yeah, I mean, us adults, we're washed. It's all the kids that are going to change our future for the better. So
damn right. And what a way to tie a bow on our conversation, Charlie. I really appreciate your time today. I just want to circle back to the listener out there. Go on O-Town, O-Town compost.com or on the social media channels, O-Town Compost on IG or Facebook, and subscribe. It's super easy. As Charlie explained, they do everything for you. They bring you the bucket, you tell you what you can put in it. They pick up the bucket. I've gone through the service. They email, they text you back if you have questions. So I can vouch for Charlie's company and say, look, he does what he says. They walk the walk. So do not hesitate and get your office involved, get your local restaurant involved that you frequent, or whatever. The sky's the limit, your school. And while we're talking about this, plugging each other. Last time I'm going to tell you about my real estate services. A portion of all my commissions go to charity. I love giving back to my community. And this is why I like bringing guests on like Charlie that are Orlando advocates and are themselves giving back to the community in the way that they do business. So when you work with me as a real estate agent, you know that a portion of my business is going back to the community. I'm a listing specialist. I also work with buyers and specialize with new construction. I'm a property developer also. So I work with the big builders. I know how to deal with them. I specialize in lakefront property. I live on a lake. Follow me on social media at Phil Kruse. Again, Kruse with a K. I'm on YouTube. Google me, Kruse. Throw real estate, throw Orlando at the end. You're going to find me. You're going to find my website. I have a nice blog going right now. I got a lot of information to share with you guys. So make sure you subscribe to my podcast and my YouTube channel. You're going to learn a lot about Orlando, a lot about businesses like O-Town Compost. And I'm just here to help. So Charlie, thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you, Phil. I really appreciate the discussion.
You're welcome. And to the listener out there, always know that your best life in Orlando is within reach. Keep embracing every moment. Cheers.